Today on the I Know I'm a Nerd Says podcast, we're going to be talking about what a budget is, the benefits of having a budget, going through a demo budget, and that's about it. So if that at all sounds interesting to you, stick around. If not, I totally get it, because finance, accounting, budgeting is the worst. Except for when it's not. I love this stuff. Hey, it's Editing Bandrew here, and I just wanted to let you know that nothing that I say in this podcast is financial advice. If you want actual financial advice, go pay an accountant. Get somebody who knows what they're doing. I'm just a dope spinning around on a chair. Okay, back to the podcast episode. If you're still here after all of that, you are officially one of my people, a full-on nerd, so we accept them, one of us. Gooble gobble, one of us. The reason that I wanted to cover this topic now is recently there were some political actions taken in the United States which may or may not increase the cost of living. And when I say may or may not, what I mean is most certainly will. So I think because of that inevitability, it's going to become increasingly important to understand your financial situation to avoid ending up in a difficult spot financially where you go further into debt or end up foreclosing or any kind of terrible situation like that. So that's really the impetus behind doing this episode, discussing basic budgeting, how you may want to approach it, and also just discuss the benefits of it. But if you have no idea what a budget is, let's take a step back, dive into Excel, and look at a very basic budget and what the components are. Essentially, what the calculation is, we're going to take our income, subtract all of our expenses, and we want the remaining number to be positive. That means we did not have to go into debt. That means we did not run out of money. So in this quick example, let's say our income is $1,000, all of our expenses are $900. That means we can save $100. But if our income was $1,000 and we ended up spending $1,100, now we overspent by $100. So either we're not going to be able to pay our bills or we're going to have to go into debt to cover that shortfall. So that's why it's really important to understand your income and your expenses so you can ensure you can always stay positive. You can stay in the black. So those are the basics of a budget, but what are the benefits of a budget? The biggest one for me is it allows you to understand your financial situation. And before I started budgeting, I would find myself just spending without any understanding. And then I would ask myself, where's the money? I earned it. It's not there. But once I started looking at my budget, calculating my income, calculating my expenses, and determining that bottom line, that allowed me to understand where all my money was going, where I was bleeding money, where I could cut back, and ensure that I was not overspending. That is the biggest benefit of budgeting. The second benefit is it's going to allow you to budget and pay off your debt faster, hopefully. And then an even bigger benefit for me is it should help you avoid debt in the future. Of course, there will be some extenuating circumstances here. Car loans are very common. There are workarounds there to avoid that. Buy used cars, buy cheap cars, buy beaters, all that. And then if you are buying a home, that's inevitable unless you're Richie Rich or something. So you will at some point have debt if you're buying a home. Then it allows you to live within your means. This may not seem like a benefit for some people because they like to put up a front, they like to wear fancy things and project that they are in a different situation or position than they are. I find this to be a very, not necessarily calming thing, but I'll go with calming. I enjoy knowing that I am living within my means. Maybe this isn't a benefit for everybody. Maybe I'm just a weirdo. The next benefit, this is huge. By understanding your financial situation, what your income and your expenses are, understanding that you're going to have money left over, or knowing that you need to cut back somewhere. Being able to plan like that reduces the stress surrounding money. Finances seems to be one of the biggest areas or the biggest contributing factors to stress, to being depressed, to relationship problems. I know that's very common in marriages and stuff, but I'm not married, so I wouldn't know. But it seems like there are a lot of issues with stress and worry around money. But once you start planning and understanding your situation, it allows you to reduce that stress and get a weight off your shoulders. And it is such a good feeling. And the last thing, this is in no particular order, by the way. This is not the least important thing. It allows you to plan for your future. I know a lot of people think, oh, we have Social Security, at least in the United States. We can rely on that for retirement. I don't think it will be there when I retire. And if it is there, I certainly don't think that it will be able to support me. So I am making sure that I have the ability to plan for my future, put money into retirement accounts, invest so that when it comes time to retire, God willing, I make it that far, I will be able to do so and be able to afford living and not become a burden on my family, not have to move in with my mom when I'm 65 or my nieces or nephews or sisters or brothers or anything. That would I don't want to do that. So by budgeting, it allows us to plan for our future. Those are the very overarching topics of budgets. If you're still with me, you're an incredible person. You are awesome. I am going to jump over to a scary looking Excel sheet now. Do not worry. We will walk through it. It is very simple. You will follow along. We can do this. This is setting up a basic budget. All right, so at a top level, we have our monthly income, which in this example is $3,038. Kind of. We'll discuss that in a little bit. Our total expenses are $3,023. Our monthly savings are $191, and that means our cash balance is minus $177. So that's a problem. We need to make some adjustments, but let's walk through this first. The first thing we need to do is account for our income source. So what I am doing here is essentially copying a pay stub. So I want to have our gross pay. In this instance, I am taking the average U.S. salary, which is $66.6 thousand, the devil's number, and I'm dividing it by 12 to get our monthly gross pay. I think one issue that a lot of people run into, or one error that a lot of people make, I made it in my 20s, is I looked at my gross pay and thought, cool, that's how much I take, that's my pay, that's what I can live on. Nope. There are things that get deducted from that, and we need to account for that. The first thing I do with a paycheck is contribute to a 401k or a savings account or a retirement account, something like that. In this demo, I am saying 10% of our gross pay goes to the 401k. That means every month we would be putting in $555. We could decrease this if we have other savings goals, but I'll discuss something very quickly. If you have an employer contribution match, I do not recommend going beneath that, because for this example, I am saying our employer will match up to a 5% contribution. So if I drop down to 5%, every month I will contribute $278 to my retirement. My employer will also contribute $278. What that means, my contribution immediately had a 100% return on investment. That is bonkers. You will be hard-pressed to find that anywhere else in the world. A guaranteed 100% return on investment. That's insane. So if you have an employer match, the lowest I would personally go is equivalent to that employer match. If we drop below 5% in this instance, now they're only contributing $111. So we gave up $160. If we contribute a whole bunch, 25%, so we're putting $1,400 into our retirement. That's a lot of money. They're still only contributing up to that 5% of $278. So I just wanted to point that out. If you do have employer match, I personally take advantage of that because 100% ROI, return on investment, that's hard to find. The next line, and also in this calculation, I am not removing this employer contribution from our take-home pay. I just have that there to drive home the point. Next, I have an HSA savings account. This is a health savings account. It should reduce our taxable income now, and then that money can be invested, grow, and then when you have some kind of health expenses, whether you go to the doctors, have some prescriptions, need new glasses, anything like that, you can pay for those expenses out of the HSA. So I am saying each paycheck we would put $100 in, and that's $200 total. So our take-home pay decreases again by $200. The last line item here is health insurance, and I looked up the average health insurance in the United States, and for a single person, they say it is $746. That seems like a lot. That seems like a lot of money, but I went with the averages, so that's what we're using in this budget. So our take-home pay decreases even more by $746. So our subtotal take-home pay is $4,051. That's pretty good. That's pretty livable. $2,000 every 2 weeks. But then the astute among you may be wondering where the taxes are. So I am assuming a 25% tax rate, which is pretty aggressive for most people, but I want to be more on the conservative side. 25% of our gross, or of our subtotal, I should say, is $1,000. Every month, we're putting $1,000 into taxes. So our take home now is $3,038. Down from $5,552. So we have lost $2,500. So what we need to do is make sure that our expenses fall beneath that $3,038. Then we get to the monthly expenses portion of the budget, and I want to point out I am making some fairly large assumptions, which may be unfair. They may be unrealistic, but I want to point it out. I am assuming that we don't have any credit card debt, any student loan debt, or any car loan. I understand that may be incredibly unfair because credit card debt, incredibly common, and it seems to be becoming more of a prominent problem or common problem. And then car loans, most people who buy a car end up with a 5-year car loan, if not more now. They're going up to 6 and 7 years. And I just learned the interest rate is 10%. What? A 10% interest rate on it? It's crazy. What in the world? And then student loans. I understand that may be incredibly unfair to leave that off, but just for this basic budget, I wanted to point that out. The first item we have in our expenses is our rent. That's the biggest line item, and I looked up the average. Average monthly rent for a 1-bedroom apartment is $1,600. Golly, that's a lot of money. So automatically, $1,600 out the door. Then we have our car insurance, because we are still assuming we have a car, we need insurance. $143 was the average for Texas. I thought that was a good middle ground. Then we have our very common or recurring or consistent bills is what I was trying to say. We have electricity, internet, and cell phone. For each of those, I am saying they will be $100 each. So $100 for electricity, $100 for your internet, and $100 for your phone. Then I have $50 for subscriptions. This would be your Apple Music, this would be your Spotify, your Netflix, your YouTube Premium, the best subscription ever. This is where that would fall into, and $50, I think that's fair. In a lot of the ads that I hear for these services that cancel subscriptions, they say, oh my gosh, the average person has $7,000 in monthly subscriptions that they don't know about. I think that's nonsense. I don't think people are that frivolous. Maybe they are, but I am going with $50. And then I threw in a gym membership for $30 in case you have that. If you don't have it, just take that out. Then we get to the more inconsistent monthly expenses, and I calculated these on a weekly basis and then just multiplied them by 4. For groceries, I'm saying $100. This is for a single person, $100 a week. That's more than enough. If you want to get more frugal, you can do that. But this is a somewhat conservative estimate. For gasoline, $30 a week. For entertainment, I did $25 a week. That may be a bit much. We'll revisit that. For coffee, I assumed this individual is going to Starbucks 5 days a week, $5 for a cup of coffee, so $25 every week, $100 a month. It may not seem like a lot. $5 a day, that adds up quickly. That's $1,200 in a year. That's why I don't do it anymore. I used to. I'm not trying to be holier. I used to make all of these mistakes. Then I have a line item for eating out, for going out to restaurants or getting food for lunch while you're at work. And I did 3 days a week or 3 meals per week at $15 a meal. That comes to $180 a month. And then I have a miscellaneous item zeroed out. So the total for all of these expenses comes to $3,023. So that means we have $15 unspent, which is absolutely crazy. This is the tightest budget that I have ever seen. And once you throw in, if you have credit card debt, student loan debt, car debt, this budget is blown. So we're going to go ahead and reassess a few things because this budget is way too tight, doesn't allow for any savings, doesn't allow for emergency funds, anything like that. The first thing we're going to do is we are going to start making coffee at home. So let's go ahead and decrease our coffee budget from $100 to $0. We also need more buffer, so we are going to stop going out to restaurants. We're going to brown bag it. We're going to eat at home. So $180 down to $0. You may be thinking, that's unfair. You need more food. So what we're going to do is bump up our groceries from $100 a week to $125 per week. And that gives us a new monthly grocery budget of $500. We're also going to cut back on our subscriptions. We don't need Spotify. We don't need Netflix. I can't live without YouTube Premium, so that's me being biased. I'm going to leave this at $15. What else can we cut back? Entertainment. What does that even consist of? Are you going to movies? We're gonna roll that back to, we'll give you $50 a month. That still may be a bit much. But this gives us a little of wiggle room now. So we have cleared up or freed up $280. Our balance is $280. So we're looking pretty good here. So what we're going to do is start throwing some money into some savings accounts. An emergency fund here, $100 every week or every month. That's really not that much. It's getting you started. We should bump it up to $200, but then that wipes out all of this. I also like having a savings account for fun money where if I want to do something, if I want to buy something that costs a decent amount, I'm not just going to go out and buy it. I am going to set aside money every paycheck, save up to make sure I can cover the entire cost of it. So I am going to say we'll put 10% of our unspent funding, unspent money to a fun money savings account, which is $95, and we're already over now. So something else we could do here. We could decrease some of our pre-tax contributions. So our 401k, we're doing 10% right now. While we're funding our emergency fund, maybe drop that to 5%, frees up a lot more money. We could also decrease our HSA, drop that down to 100. Wouldn't recommend canceling health insurance or any of that. So I would also highly recommend paying your taxes, so we're not clearing that out either. But by decreasing our 401k and our HSA for the time being, that frees up $240 additional, so we can go ahead and keep that emergency fund getting funded. We could also just add another 10% for a second emergency fund in a separate bank account. And those are the basics of the budget. This is very simple. I tried not to make it too complex, and maybe I did make it a bit too complicated. I spend all day in Excel. This is my bread and butter. I love this stuff so much, but I suck at making pretty spreadsheets. Let's recap. Our gross pay every single month was $5,500. Once we account for 401k savings, HSA contributions, health insurance, and taxes, we're taking home $3,321. So before we get anything deposited into our accounts, we're spending $2,200. Ouch! That hurts. Then once we spend all of our money on rent and car insurance, electricity, all of the bills, all the recurring expenses, we end up with, how much is it? We end up with $563. But then once we start saving, $323 for an emergency fund every month. And if we want to maybe be a little less generous with ourselves for our fun money, $61 or $62 every month going into that account to save for buying gifts for somebody, buying a watch, a cologne, doing something fun, something like that, $61. And that leaves us with a cash balance of $178. Yeah, still pretty tight. And again, I did make some pretty huge assumptions here with the no credit card debt, no student loan debt, and no car loan. That may be unfair, may be unrealistic, but I wanted to keep it relatively simple and not have to juggle 500 things to figure out the exact balance. I wanted to keep this podcast episode relatively short in the Excel. So to really summarize one more time, this budget was a little bit confusing, but all we're doing is taking our income, subtracting our expenses, and trying to ensure that remaining number is above zero, because that means we are in the black, we didn't overspend, we can pay all our bills, and we don't have to go into debt. That's the goal of budgeting and planning for the future, having these savings accounts, and we may need to make some kind of adjustments to our lifestyles. Once I started doing this, I stopped going out for coffee. I stopped going out to eat at restaurants very much. I very rarely do that. What I do now is just shop at a grocery store, make my coffee at home, make my breakfast, lunch, and dinner at home. I almost never go out to restaurants. I almost never go out to the movies. I find other ways to fill my time that bring me joy that don't cost money. Because a couple of years ago, I saw that there's potential for some difficult financial times, and instead of waiting for that to happen and being forced to adjust my lifestyle, I wanted to adjust my lifestyle, become acclimated to it on my own terms, where I wasn't forced to do it. And that allowed me to make these changes, become comfortable with them, and understand my finances a lot better. So I just wanted to share this with you, walk through it, and I hope that was helpful. I know this is, most people think of finance, accounting, Excel, budgeting as the worst. I get it. Nobody likes looking at money and seeing, gosh darn it, I need to cut back my Netflix subscription. Gosh darn it, I can't go get my Starbucks. Nobody likes that. But I'll tell you, from my experience, once you start budgeting and you are able to pay off those credit cards, once you see that the remaining balance every single month is positive, the weight off your shoulders is worth 100 times more than that cup of coffee, than going out to that movie, than going out and getting drinks at the bar or whatever. It feels so much better than any of that. So it may be difficult adjusting your lifestyle, but I assure you, the freedom that you will get not having that stress hanging over you, it's worth it. All right, we're going to wrap up that topic there. I don't have anything else planned today. I do have a couple of what you had to says, but I know y'all are totally funned out, so we are going to skip over those. I will summarize. Somebody said, I hate YouTube Shorts. I want to be able to block them and make them disappear because they suck. Understandable position. The second position was, I am a content creator. I make YouTube videos. I like shorts because the barrier to entry is lower. There is less pressure. I also get that. Two sides of the same coin. Shorts are good and bad, and YouTube's shoving of them down everybody's throats is the bad part. That's the bad part, and why I think they've had to make so many shifts with the notifications, why they're trying changes in the notifications. Actually, I wasn't planning on talking about this. I want to issue a mea culpa. I want to point out how I was wrong. In the last episode, I was moaning about shorts, and I said, gosh darn it, why can't we filter out shorts in our subscription feeds? Turns out we can on the phone, and I believe even on the website. But you are not able to filter out shorts from your subscriptions or from your search results on the TV. Also, you can't filter out shorts from the search results without filtering out any video under 4 minutes, I think it is. So I wanted to issue an apology to YouTube. Sorry, my bad. I was not fully aware of that feature in the subscriptions feed on the phone and the website to just look at the videos and omit shorts. My bad. But still, give us the option to do that on TV, and please give us the option to omit shorts from search results, because when I am searching for everyday carry, anything like that, I don't want to see the shorts. And sometimes people make short everyday carry videos that are great, that are under 4 minutes, and I filter those out and don't see them. That is my request. Okay, that is what you had to say. Now we are jumping to the value for value section, because this is a V for V podcast. What that means, I don't put ads on this show. I don't have a paywall. I don't do any of that. I just throw the show out there, and if you get any value out of it, I ask you return that in whatever way you are able, whether it's time, talent, or treasure. I stole this entire funding method, this entire system from No Agenda, so thank you to those guys. And if you want to support the show, podcastage.com/support. You can also leave a super thanks on YouTube, or if you don't want to support financially, just share the show with a friend. This is a long spoken word show. I typically cover multiple topics. Today, I spent 20 minutes in Excel. This is not going to do well in the algorithm. I can tell you that right now. So sharing it with somebody is incredibly helpful, and I appreciate you doing that so much. The first contribution we have today is 16. No, I am sorry. I don't know how to read. My brain is Excel'd out, numbered out. It doesn't know, does not compute. What did I say? This may be a weird episode. It's 8:30. I have been in Excel for 10 and a half hours today. I don't understand what life is. $14 Canadian from Greg LG, and he says, "Greetings, inhabitant of Trumpland." Greg, thank you very much for the 14 Canadian, and thank you for greeting me, an inhabitant of Trumpland. I want to issue a greeting to you as well, Greg, inhabitant of the Great White North. May the muse reign supreme. There is nothing called a muse. They are moose. And I was thinking, is it moose, meese, mooses? I know that this debate happened, and it happened a lot on Better Podcasting, but I cannot recall for the life of me what the conclusion was. Who won? Was it moose, meese, or mooses? Also, the only reason I know that Canada is called the Great White North is because of this awesome hardcore band, Botch. They have a song called "To Our Friends in the Great White North," if I am not mistaken, and oh my gosh, if you have not listened to Botch and you are into heavy music, it's some of the most interesting and gnarly guitar playing you will ever hear. It is so good. I think their intro to, I can't remember An Anthology of Ends, is that what it was? The opening track, it may have been Afghanistan or Japan. I can't remember. The opening track is 20 seconds long, but it is just one of the most unique guitar parts I have ever heard. And that's coming to you live from Trumpland. Thank you very much, Greg. Really appreciate the support. And secondly, we have €50 from none other than TechMed Raina Richter. And he says, "Danke." Raina, thank you so much for the €50. I really do appreciate it. The fact that you continue to get value out of this show is amazing to me, and I deeply appreciate you. I also appreciate you, Greg. The support from both of you helps keep the bills paid, the lights on, the demons at bay, the voices in my head quiet. All of that stuff. That's not true. The voices are still screaming. So I appreciate you very, very much. And if you enjoy this show being ad-free, it is thanks to the support of Raina and Greg. That's something else I appreciate about this. I loathe ads with all of my being. And I hate the fact that I need to rely on them on other channels because there's significant amounts of overhead on those channels that needs to be covered for them to continue to run. But on this show, I am able to keep it ad-free, and that gives me a clear conscience because I don't have to force you to watch them or listen to them or anything. And that's thanks to the support through Value for Value from Raina and Greg. All right, I think that's going to wrap up. I was going to do a favorite thing of the week. I pulled and listed a bunch of YouTube videos, some colognes, some music. Man, there was so much awesome stuff, but it's 8:40 p.m. on a Monday, and I have been working since 6:30, so I am going to call it quits there. And yes, this is the third time that I recorded this podcast. I recorded it once, realized this is a terrible approach to discussing a budget. I edited it, recorded a second time, edited that entire thing, realized what a terrible Excel format and approach that was, and then trashed it and re-recorded after work today. So there you go. I'm going to wrap up there. Thank you so much for coming by, watching, and listening. I know you could do anything with your time. There are a million things vying for your attention. So the fact that you choose to spend 1, 2, 10, 20, 50 minutes watching or listening to this really does mean the world to me because you could do anything. So I really do appreciate you. I hope you have an amazing Sunday. I hope we had an amazing Sunday. You have an amazing Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Next Sunday, I will be back talking at you with you about you. Probably not budgeting unless there are other personal finance questions. On that note, I'm not going to end just yet. This was very different than the usual episode. We only focused on one thing and did a lot deeper of a dive than we normally do. If this was interesting to you and you want me to do more on this podcast, let me know so I can do that. If you hated it, chances are you're not even here anymore. So if there are 0 comments, I will know everybody hated all of this and hates my face and hates Excel and budgeting, and they concur that finance, accounting, and budgeting is the worst. Thank you. I love you. Bye-bye. Whoa. Whoa.
This has been a Geeks Rising production. Your executive producer is Bandrew Scott. For more information, head over to www.geeksrising.com.